Hi everyone, my name is Nellie. I am going to be presenting today the new updates for Mosa Core, their new core collection that was launched a few months ago. But this is just going to be a review of that, and then that's going to lead us into the pattern generator update. So they did a relaunch of their pattern generator with this new core launch, and so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me pull up the core. So Mosa used to have, three separate porcelain lines that were kind of their main bread and butter as far as color offerings for the floor. Now they have combined them into one big collection called Mosa Core. So those three collections were solid, Terra Maastricht, which was started to be called Terra, and then Quartz. And then they've also added, along with that, a new program called Shapes, in which they cut down these larger pieces, these 24 by 24s, to these cool patterns that create a lot of fun new design opportunities. So going back to the website, so the cool thing about this is exactly how it's going to be laid out in the sample folder. So if you look at a sample folder, it's going to be laid out the same. You'll see the new colors there are marked. So along the center is going to be that neutral white, so not too cool, not too warm. And then along the edges, it's going to move to dark. And then you'll have a cool side and you'll have a warm side here. And then down here along the bottom, this in the sample folder will actually be along the left side, but here they've shown it a little bit lower down on the page. And these were just colors that were in the previous collections that they wanted to keep, but didn't really fit into this matrices. That was really nice and kind of concise. So this top row is going to contain the colors that are from the solids collection. One thing to note, if you're already familiar with these collections, they kept the same color codes. So that's something that's really helpful when you're looking through and trying to figure out what line it comes from. So all the 5 ones are from the solids collection. And solids has a mixed size aggregate and a little bit of movement, kind of typical of like a sandstone. This is a pretty good up close image of that. It's got really kind of subtle organic movement. That's another good picture there. Here's another one there that shows a little bit more of the way that the pigments move. This second section here, these colors, they all begin with a 2. These are from their Mosa, from Terra Maastricht, which is basically just a solid, more of a concrete look, I would say. One thing that's really cool about Terra, the way that they did this in the brochure, and this is a new update. So some colors of Terra are going to be more solid like this. They're going to have and they've graded it utilizing this single dot here. And you'll see that in the brochure and in the catalog in the sample folder. So some of them are going to be more like that and be more solid. But then as you go up in the intensity of the scale, these 3 dots here have more of this kind of modeling texture that's typical of Terra that they call flaming. And that just has to do with how the pigments perform in the kiln when it's being fired. So that kind of gives you a really good visual there. And then the bottom row is going to be quartz, and quartz is not a mixed sized aggregate. They're all about the same size, larger than the solids aggregate. And it also has this really cool relief texture, which you can see here in this image. And that relief texture makes it suitable for exterior uncovered installations. And then moving on into shapes. So the main thing about this part of it, so there's a bunch of colors. I believe that all of the colors come in each shape because Mosa is currently making these to order. This is another really good image of how the cut works. And the main thing with this is that Mosa's pretty not pumped about making any waste or having really inefficient, stocking procedures. So because of the fact that they are cutting these down from existing 24 by 24s, you'll see that here. This is how all the patterns are cut. So it won't let you make a pattern, and I'll demonstrate this when we get into the pattern generator as well. It's not going to let you create any sort of pattern where you're creating any leftover chunks. So for example, in this picture, there's a lot of different colors going on. Looks like 4. But they won't let these 2 pieces here complete these little half circles here. So it's not, and the pattern has a repeat that makes that work. So they're not going to let you go and take this little chunk and just like make it blue for no reason, because that is going to leave these 3 chunks that it took to cut this piece. And like I said, the pattern generator won't let you do that, and I'll demonstrate that if you get into it. But that's just something to keep in mind too. If you're creating a pattern on your own, you're not going to be able to order a pattern or do anything with just this piece. Like, they're going to make it so that you have to order the whole thing. They included most of the accessories. They just carried those over from the other collections. The stair treads shown in this only pretty much come in solids. And then just like with any Mosa brochure at the back, you're going to have these charts that detail out what sizes and finishes each color comes in. And these can be kind of difficult to read. If you have any questions, you can ask a rep about it. One thing to note in this is these little dots here are for the sizes that are made and stocked, but not in the US. So this is a US brochure, so it's not going to show those. Okay, I think that's everything with core. This image here is a really good demonstration of how the similar colors work in each of the different textures. So now we're going to get into the pattern generator. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you get started is you're going to want to make sure that on the website that you're on, the Mosa website, that you're on the US website. And the main thing that that's going to do is it's going to make sure that your measurements are empirical when you first go in. And then also it's going to make sure it notifies you of any of those special order sizes or colors that are not stocked in the US. So to find the pattern generator, you're going to go to services, and then you're just going to click on it right here. And it's actually going to open you up into a new window. And I'm going to actually log out so you can see what the first page looks like when you first go into it. So just a second. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, so this is what it's going to look like when you first go in. You can mess around and play with the pattern generator without having an account, but it won't be able to you won't be able to save any of your patterns or download anything to any of your programs. So it would just be kind of a more for a funsies thing. So you should probably create an account. So you're going to log in. We're finally going to do this whole process. And when it first pulls up, if you've saved other patterns, those are going to come up all here. So you can see from other presentations that I've done on this that this is kind of what it all looks like. These are all my presentations. Also, this is the other section too, where if you want to add a specific project, like let's say you're working on, Lincoln Heights Elementary or something, you could add in a project here, and then any patterns that you create for that project will be found in a folder. But we're going to create a new pattern, and it's going to pull up a lot of options for you, and I'm going to get into how you search through all the patterns. But first, I'm going to show you what I was talking about earlier with the shapes, how it won't let you change the color. So we're going to open this pattern here real quick. So these are all the individual tiles in the pattern. But when you click on this specific piece, it's going to have to select all of it, and it won't give you an option there to select just this tile because it doesn't want you can't do that. So it won't even give you the option. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Okay, so when you first get in, there's a variety of ways to kind of narrow down. There's 680 patterns in here. And one thing to note too is when I first started doing these presentations, there was only 670. So that means that they're adding more every day. The cool thing about this program is because it's grid-based, it doesn't allow you to do anything that you're not able to do with an actual physical piece of tile. So if there's a thickness difference or a specific color doesn't come in a certain size, it's not going to let you put that in there. So you can sort by color. That's a little bit limiting only because, for example, if you wanted this pattern, but you searched orange, this pattern isn't going to come up, even though there might be a pattern that a color that comes in that size that's orange. But it is really helpful if you just want to browse through existing patterns that are already in the system, like you want to look at just black. You can see any of those here. You can sort by size, and again, these are all empirical. Applications, so wall, floor. One thing to note on this is if you click wall, it won't just bring up tiles that are suitable only for the wall. It will bring up tiles that are suitable for both floor and wall. The main reason that they include this is because if you're looking in the brochure and you're looking at a specific application that maybe was on a wall, that's going to come up here. You can do surfaces. So this is really, if you want just wall tile, this is where you're going to want to click it. So glazed is going to be only wall tiles, ceramic, not porcelain. So that'll be here. You can specifically go by series, which is really nice. You can choose by color combination. So you can do, if you want it to be solid, just one color, multicolor random. And those are really cool. That's what we'll be working on today. And then the multicolor rhythm, which is basically just their word for like an easily identifiable repeat pattern, like a pattern that has, like you can see where the repeat is. And then you can also search by grids. This is really helpful if you already kind of are aware of the scale as well as the layout that you want to use. When I say scale, like this specific piece right here is going to give you a grid that's a specific size. I believe this is a 2x24. So it's going to give you just patterns that have a specific 2x24. So if you know you want a larger format, you're going to want to choose a grid that has a larger format, obviously. And then if you wanted to work with a herringbone, again, it's going to give you just those things. So like, for example, the only time where this gets confusing is like, these are all 6 by 12 patterns, but they could also be 12 by 24 patterns based on the scale. And then last little thing in this section, you here can search by code, and this is really helpful if you're, let's say you're looking through a global brochure and you're like, wow, I really like that wall tile pattern, but I want to like play around with it and see if I can switch out some of the colors. If you go to the back of the brochure, Mosa will have printed the details of each image that are in the brochure, like the colors and the sizes that are included, and they'll also include a pattern code. And you can put that in and search that right here. And then you can reset any filters that you set, or you can just click sort by default and it'll give you those options there. So the pattern that we're going to be working with today is this one. And the reason I choose this one every time I do a presentation is because it kind of shows all of the different aspects of the pattern generator. So the first thing that's going to pop up, because I've chosen this specific pattern and it's blue, this 239, that's the color that this is, in this finish, in this size, is a special order from the Netherlands. For most commercial projects, that's not going to be an issue, especially during the design stage, only because Mosa has a container that leaves for their Charleston warehouse every week. So lead time from the Netherlands is only about 8 weeks. One thing to note on the shapes, so those custom cuts, is those are currently made to order. I know at one point they were thinking about bringing on some, but because of the fact that this year has just been so weird, they haven't actually had a good idea of what colors are going to be the most popular. But I'm sure as soon as they do, they will choose to bring some of the shapes to Charleston and stock them here. But for now, those have a 4-week production lead time. So that's typically about a 3-month lead time for the shapes, but everything else from Mosa is about an 8-week lead time. That's special order only. Their Charleston warehouse is just standard, 2 to 3 week lead time. So when you first pop up, there's going to be this selection window here, and you can move this around. This is really just to give you an idea of the scale of whatever the wall is that you're working in. So if you know, like, oh, I'm going to be working on a wall that's 8 feet long, you can change that and kind of move everything around so it works that way. And there's a little scale down here to kind of give you an idea of how big the pattern is. You can also click right here and give specific positioning on it if you want to. And then you can also specify specific inches if you want. You can also turn on snap to grid. And you'll see down there in the corner, there's that little dot. And that'll basically ensure that if you're creating a specific selection and not a seamless texture, that you don't have any weird cuts or anything like that. So right off the bat, I know that I want all of these little 2 by 24s, these little skinny pieces here, to be a different color. So I'm going to click on it, and I want all of them to be selected. Right here, if I wanted to, see there's this little arrow. I could specify that I just want to change this one single tile because this is a random pattern. It doesn't have a repeat. And so you can change just this one if you want to. If this pops up, if this doesn't pop up in a pattern anywhere, it's typically because there is some sort of repeat. So it's basically saying, like, we don't want to change this one because we don't know what other pieces in this pattern you want to change. But it pops up for most of the patterns. So I'm going to click this little paint bucket here. And what's going to pop up on this side are only colors that come in the size that are popped up here. So For example, in if you're ever confused, like, why isn't this color popping up or something, it's probably because that color doesn't come in a thickness or the size that you're looking at on the pattern. So for example, with like Mosa murals, it's a super complex line. The 6x20, the 6x12s are a different thickness than the 12x12s and the 12x24s, and same for the 6x6s. So if you're ever confused there, that's why. And that's just really helpful because they don't want you to spend all this time and all this work creating this beautiful pattern. And then in reality, when you go to do it, you can't actually install it because the thicknesses are different. So anyway, so you can sort within this as well. So you can sort by color if you're, and that can be really helpful if you're working in global. There's like 100 colors or something like that. So you can search for that. You can search by series. You can search by a specific color code. So if you know by looking at the physical samples, yes, I already know what color I want. You can search that here. Or you can do by texture as well, which is really helpful if there's multiple finishes that are available in a specific size and color. So I think I want this to be, I think I want these to be white. So I'm going to do that here. It's going to give you a preview right over here of what that pattern's going to look like. But once you click apply, that's when it's going to render whatever texture. So if you're ever putting something in and you're like, wow, that looks kind of funky, if you click apply, it'll render the texture once you do that. So now I have all the 2x24 switched out, but now I want some of these 4x24s to be a different color. I don't want all of them to be a different color, but I want to add 2 more colors to that. So I'm going to click right here. And again, you can change this single tile, but since I want to add a color, I'm going to click this paint bucket up here. And here in this, it's going to list out all of the colors and sizes that are already existing in the pattern. Again, there's a helpful little reminder, hey, this 4x24 in this color and this finish is a special order. So that's just another reminder. But you can see that the white that I added is not that it's stocked in the US. But I want to add a tile to that. So I'm going to choose here, and I want these to have a little bit of relief. So I'm going to specify relief textures only. And I think I also want this to have a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to choose this nice 203. And I think I want to add one more color, but I want it to be like a mid-tone. And I think I want it to be from the solids collection. Actually, no, I want it to be from Terratones so that we get a little bit of color variation. And we want a mid-tone. That's too light. Let's do that. Okay. So now we've gotten all of our colors. Now we have all the colors in here that we want specified. But I still don't like how much blue there is. I want there to be a little bit more of this black color. So I'm going to go down to these little sliders that say edit color distribution. And it's going to, if you have any sizes that have multiple different colors within them, this will pop up. If for some reason it's not popping up, it means that there's something different within the size. But then within this, you can manually adjust your percentages of how much type of each color you want. And this is really dramatic when you're playing around with like a wall tile or something like that, just because there's a lot of times a bunch of different stuff going on and it's just a really cool opportunity. But I think I want it to be like 45, 30 on the, oops, I did that wrong. I'm going to be perfect. Okay, cool. And then again, just like with almost anything, you can reset to what you had if you mess around with it too much and you don't like it. You can also choose right here, this is going to be grout color. They have a lot of presets in here, which is really helpful. This pink is really fun. You can also put in an RGB value if you want. But the main thing that's really cool about this is, let's say you know from looking at the physical samples that you want to use Laticrete let's say light pewter or sterling silver. And this is kind of similar to that color in the rendering. So I'm going to click on this, and then down here, they call that color white, but you can type in specifically what you want the grout color to be so that when it generates your specifications for you, that comes up as the grout color that you want. You can click this button to randomize if you want it to be laid out in a certain way. You can zoom in to see the texture. And just like with SketchUp or CAD or anything like that, if you hold down the center mouse button, you can pan around to look at the pattern. You can't roll in and out with the mouse if you have a little roller thing, though. You can only use the zoom in and the zoom out. You can undo, you can redo, and you can reset the pattern to its original form. Okay, so this is the last little section here. So let's say I don't like this pattern, I don't like what I've did, and I want to start a new pattern. You can click that right here to start a new pattern. It will prompt you and say, hey, are you sure you don't want to save this? But we do know we want to save this, so we're going to click this right here, this little save pattern button. And this is where you can name your pattern. And here you can also, if you've created a project, you can add a new project, or if you haven't added it yet, you can add it to a new project, and you can specify like, oh, this is for Lincoln Heights Elementary, and this is for the girls' bathroom on floor 1, girls' bathroom floor 2, stuff like that. But we're going to save this design here, and hopefully this works because the internet was doing weird things. Okay, and again, this is just reinforcing, hey, these are the special order things that you have. Don't keep these in here if you don't want them to be special order. So down here at the bottom, there's a little info thing, and this is more just going to generate a kind of general information for you, the designer. This doesn't allow you to download anything, but it's going to include up here the series that are included. So this includes Core Terra as well as Terra Tones. It's going to give you a grid code. This is really helpful if, let's say, you're working on a project where you're using the same pattern around a bunch of different areas, but you're using different colors and you don't want to go through this searching and find them all again. You can make a note of this grid color, and in that little search bar, you can enter that to kind of narrow down and find the grid again. Again, here's the joint color. And then this pattern code, this is generated specifically to you and your account. So this is just kind of a helpful way for you to keep track of stuff, especially if you're downloading anything. And then it's going to give you kind of an estimate of the quantities, and it's going to generate this in 2 different ways. It's going to generate it based on a specific area. So it's going to say these, for 200V in the 4x24, you're going to need 63 tiles, which is 3 boxes, to cover the specific area that you've chosen. But if you're doing a seamless texture, like over a wide area, it's going to generate that information based on percentages of the square foot that you're working on. So now we're totally certain, we know the quantities are good and all that. We're going to click this button here, and that's going to download the pattern. And this is kind of a game changer for like a lot of people, because this is how you guys do your job. So it's going to list out all the different file types or the programs that it's compatible with. You can choose your resolution, and you can choose specific file types. These little info button here, if you want to, you'll click this here, and it's going to show you exactly what file types are going to be included in the zip file when you download it. For Revit, you will need to install a Mosa converter to your computer. And that's just because, as we all know, Revit textures and hatches are like a pain in the butt. So this is going to, but I talked to a designer who did this and she said it wasn't a big deal at all. You can also download here a selection preview, and that's going to just generate a JPEG of just the selection that you have. So that pulled up here. Okay, so now we've inserted this all into our drawings and our client likes it, and so we're ready to put it into CDs and stuff like that. So we're going to click print pattern right here. And it's going to give you, again, two different options. If you go by selection, which again is just this specific area that you're wanting to cover, it's going to generate, and you'll see it here, again, those specific quantities and percentages. So this is a lot of information, which is super helpful. It's really helpful if you're doing just like a backsplash or like a feature wall. And then down here, it's going to have a legend with what color everything is, as well as the orientation. And that's really helpful if you have like a 6x12, that's two different orientations within the same pattern. And then it's going to give you a specific installation guide for that specific selection area here for your installer. If you decide to generate a seamless texture, and this is a PDF file, by the way, it's going to include a little bit less specifics on the quantities because all it's giving you is the percentage that you need to cover like a whole floor. You'll need to order this much of this tile. Again, you have your legend. And then here, this is basically going to give the installer a lot more information because they want you to be able to have it repeat over a large area. So they want to give you a specific idea of what the repeat looks like. And then as you can see in this, there's no like cuts or anything. So that kind of gives you an idea there. And I think that is it for the pattern generator. If you have any questions, there is a little help thing here and a little instruction video that kind of gives you a little bit less in-depth kind of summary of the whole thing. You can also change any account details or look at your pattern log out here. But it's a really cool tool, and I think the main things that kind of set it apart as a pattern generator that I think Mosa did really, really well is one, it won't let you do anything that you can't do, which is extremely important. And the reason that they included it is because for the second reason that I think this is really a big deal as a pattern generator, that you can use it for the whole Mosa line. So sometimes companies will like, oh, we're doing a cool new launch. We're going to do a pattern visualizer or something like that to kind of promote or launch this new line. But you can use this for any of Mosa's lines, global, murals, any of it. And then also just how easily you can download usable stuff for your textures, for your patterns. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention on that, for SketchUp, this is going to download as a material. So it's not going to be a JPEG or anything. It's going to be a 2-scale material that you can apply to the different surfaces. But yeah, I think that's everything. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. And thank you so much. Let your rep know or me know if you have any questions. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.